that I'm hitting. Hello, everyone. I am that Weems guy back for another episode, and I accidentally hit the record button as I was about to tell the guests that I was hitting the record button. So you may have gotten a few extra seconds that we didn't intend. Tonight's guest is Mr. Kirk Clark, and I'm very much looking forward to this episode, and I hope that you are as well, because Kirk has some different opinions that may challenge some conventional wisdom. And what else are we supposed to do with discussion and critical thinking, if that's possible on the internet, then challenge conventional wisdom? Because maybe we're wrong collectively, and maybe we need to examine what we're doing. So Kirk, if you would, say hello to everyone and tell them who you are.
Hello, my name is Kirk. I am the least cool guy in the tactical community. I'm a normal Joe. I'm involved in sales. I try to keep my shooting life and my personal life kind of two different buckets. But I've been a pretty serious student of personal defense for about 20 years. And I've trained with most people worth training with, still some folks I'm chasing out there to get with. And I've done a lot of the tests that are out there for people like me, regular Joes. I've kind of tackled and done a pretty good job at accomplishing most of them.
All right. I will disagree with that least cool guy thing. I think you're a pretty cool guy. So,
well, as in, I've never been a sworn officer or anything, not LE. I'm just average Joe's Jim representing.
Well, I think that actually makes you even more cool for the level of accomplishment that you've achieved. And it actually gives you, I think, some credibility to speak on some of the issues we're going to talk about, especially with you having different opinions on some things, because you don't come from the vast majority of us out here doing this on the instructor side come from a law enforcement military background, and you don't. And maybe there's a box that we're missing here. And so I hope we get into that. All right. This past year, you had an amazing year of accomplishment with shooting. When I say accomplishment for the audience, I mean like amazing benchmarks that he has hit. The first one we're going to talk about is he is one of 6 people who has shot a perfect 125 on the Rogers test at the Rogers Shooting School. Excuse me, if Claude Warner hears this, the elite Rogers Shooting School. He's one of 6, like I said, 6 people who have shot a perfect score on that. And it's a crazy small world. Of those 6, I have met 5 of them, and I know 4 of them, like personally, like they're in my phone. I can call them and first name basis. But only 2 of those 6 have done it from concealment. One of those is our mutual friend, Gabe White, and the other is our guest tonight, Kirk. So Kirk, talk to us about Rogers.
So my story with Rogers kind of begins before this time I went last year. I first heard about Rogers Shooting School from Paul Gomez, who I first trained with in January of 2011. And Paul and I hit it off. And one of the questions I asked Paul was, where are the places I need to go? And the 2 places he said, he listed several people, but the 2 at the very top of the list he had for me were Rogers Shooting School and Craig Douglas. Those are the people he sent me to. Now, over the years, I've been to Rogers 5 times. I think I've done ECQC 6 times, EWO, EDP, a bunch of stuff with Craig. And so I listened to Paul because he gave me good advice. The first time I went to Rogers, I knew nothing about it and wanted to blindly throw myself at a shooting test. I got the red pin. I won the class champ. My high was a 125. My low was a 105. I went again a year or 2 later with the idea of really, I wanted to conquer it. I knew I could beat it. And so I did a lot of practice and I worked real hard for it, but I wasn't a serious competitor yet. And I made errors in equipment selection that cost me. But the best I did that trip was 124. I then went a couple times.
Only a measly 124.
You have no idea how bad 124 feels. Like I literally, when I missed that shot, I remember it was in test 9. And one of the things, I mean, these are the things you got to know when you're really gunning for it. When you're in Bay 1 at Rogers, you have to know that front body 1 target leans slightly to the left. So if you don't step all the way out the door, the corner of that target will obscure target 6. And so I shot target 6 and the tip of the shoulder about 6 times. Actually, it was in test 8 because it was left-handed. I shot that tip of the body 6 times trying to hit that head plate because I hadn't realized, man, if I moved 6 inches more to the left, I would have been fine. But I had equipment errors. I was fighting my equipment, got a 124, knocked down all the other targets, clean test 9, and wanted to go just like bury myself in the dirt by the river there in LJ and just become one with the earth and just give up at life. And so I went back. I got promoted at work. My workload went crazy, 60 hours a week. Couldn't train anymore, couldn't practice much. So I went socially with friends a couple times. And then this year I decided, nope, this year we're serious. We're going to do it. And I studied every day for it for months. I practiced around Rogers very differently from how Gabe practiced it, which is interesting. We had a good conversation about that. But I selected my equipment very carefully and I thought about it very deeply, and I was able to have a very good performance this last year.
Oh, tell us about the performance from this last year.
So a little bit of backstory. My father had what we thought at the time was a stroke about 2 weeks before. And it seemed like everything was going well. Like we had him with a really good neurologist, and he was responding to treatment well. And, you know, it just seemed like, okay, he had a stroke, but he's getting better. It'll be okay. I'm going to go do this Rogers thing. I'm going to go clean Rogers for pops, come back home, and we'll kind of go in this next phase of life with him, help him with recovery. So I had that in the back of my mind while I was there. And for me, the thought in my back of my head was, I ain't going to be all the way over here and not take it home. Like, I'm taking this home with me. And so day 1, I cleaned it. I cleaned it on Monday. And that was a really good feeling. But what that hit me with was, all right, if I can clean it day 1, there's more out there. I got 5 more shots at this thing. I can do it again. So I cleaned it on Tuesday. So I'm the only guy's ever done it 2 times consecutively for sure. And Wednesday morning, I had a mental error on test 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe it's test 6, right? Yeah, because it's the second of the one right hand only test. On test 6, which is the hardest test, all the rest of them are actually reasonably easy, but test 6. Test 6 is the widowmaker. That's where so many people lose it. That's where you have 5 no makeup shots, slide lock reload, 5 shots, 1 right hand only. And I was clearing a malfunction, and I used 2 hands to clear the malfunction. Now, what I misunderstood is in test 5 that's allowed, test 6 it isn't. And so I got docked for, hey, that doesn't count. So they made me reshoot it, and when I reshoot it, I missed 1. So I hit 124 on that test. So then I went again on Thursday, and I did a 125 Thursday morning, and then I did a 124 Thursday afternoon. Again, I missed 1 shot on that same test 6, right? And then that night, I got a call from my mom. Dad had relapsed, and I needed to drive straight home. So I just drove through the night, got home, and I didn't get a shoot on Friday. So I only got to run it 5 times. So I was able to do 3 out of 5 with 2 124s that trip.
That is an amazing run. That's an amazing run. So folks, if you're not familiar with Rogers, get on YouTube and search Rogers Shooting School, and you'll see numerous videos. Todd Green made a really good video series on all the tests. Okay, and here are the people who have shot perfect scores on it. Well, 1, Bill Rogers, the founder of the school. Number 2, Rob Latham. All right, that's pretty good company in the shooting world to be in. Gabe White and Manny Bragg, and I was actually in the class where they did that and was standing right behind Gabe, watching both him and Manny duel and get that. And then a guy by the name of David Knight, who's actually a personal friend of mine from long before I'd ever even heard of a lot of this stuff, because he's a cop here in Georgia and teaches at the Public Safety Training Center. And David, and then Kirk. So that's pretty small company of people that have shot a perfect score on that course. I have attended Rogers. Go ahead, Kirk. Go ahead.
Sorry. And this is something a lot, because like I'll tell people, hey, I did 125. I'll tell like USPSA guys that. They don't know what that means. The one USPSA guy I told that to who like understood was Ben Steger. Because when I told Ben that I shoot with Ben every year when he comes to Texas, and I shot with him, February of 21. I was telling him, hey man, I'm going to go try to take Rogers. And I shot with him again this February, and he's like, how'd you do? I'm like, well, I cleaned it 3 times, and he understood because the reason he understands is he talked to Manny Bragg about it. And he goes, man, and just told him Manny, according to Ben, I don't know. He said Manny called him and said, dude, this stuff's hard. Like he was kind of expecting to just go out there because Manny's a legit badass GM, right? Like Manny's a serious shooter. And apparently at some point he talked to Steger, like, man, this is pretty rough. And so Steger knows how serious it is. So Steger kind of understands it. But like most of the other USPSA guys, they're just kind of like, what's that? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't get is, in my opinion, from a marksmanship perspective, the Rogers Shooting School test is hands down. It's harder than fast coin, black belt patch, turbo pin, Taccon, any of that. It is just harder and it's objective. And I'll tell you, when I went there the first time, I was a pretty good shooter my first time I went there. I mean, I'm better now, but I was no slouch my first visit. And when they first blind run the test, and you can just see all the head plates coming up and coming down at the speed they're going to come at, the thought in my mind as a pretty serious pistol shooter was, oh my Lord, what have I gotten myself into? I can't do this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a lot to bite off. And I don't think people fully understand, like Manny and Mr. Knight and Gabe and those guys, like hats off, because it's rough.
Yeah. I've heard a story about a certain very high-end elite operational team that showed up and on the first day said, this is impossible, and left. And I believe that story is true. And it's so fine. A couple of things. My take on Rogers is that once you have the first mistake in a stage or fundamentals failure, it leads to a cascade of failure. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, there's 2 ways you can shoot Rogers, right? You can shoot Rogers the way that it should be shot and most people should be shooting it, which is an evaluation of your personal shooting abilities and your ability to perform tasks correctly within human reaction time. The other way to shoot is the way that, Gabe are shooting, which is as a pass-fail test. I either do every single thing right for the test or I don't. Yeah. And I actually was interviewing Bill Rogers the other day because I'm putting up some articles on Cryptid Endeavors. It's way behind because I've been too busy. But like one of the things I asked Bill is, what do the different levels of achievement at the test represent for you? Because he has basic, intermediate, and advanced, right? Like when you were formulating this, what does that mean? And what he told me was he envisioned someone that gets a basic rating at Rogers as someone who is a capable two-handed pistol shooter. And if you can get to intermediate, you are capable two-handed and strong-hand pistol shooter. If you get to advanced, because advanced means you only drop 15 shots out of 125, 15 or, kind of in that band, but no, if you're there, you have to be able to shoot weekend only. So if you get an advanced rating of Rogers, you are capable at two-handed, right-handed, and weak-handed. And I never thought about it like that. And I was like, man, Bill, it's like you're some smart guy that's really thought this stuff out,
That's a very interesting take on it. And I'm going to skip the second question to run with that thread for a second. The Georgia Public Safety Training Center has what they call a Rogers range. It's the same system, but the target array is different. And I had been to that class 3 times before I went to Rogers, and I had gotten it advanced all 3 of those times at Gypstick on it. But they ran the scoring system differently than what Rogers did. And I understand now they've gone back to a total plank count like Rogers does. But on the 3 instances that I went, you had to get your basic, you had to get 80% of the what they call freestyle two-hand shooting. Then you had to achieve that. And then you had to get 80% of the strong hand only shooting for intermediate. And then you had to get 80% of the support hand only shooting to get advanced. And you had to achieve those in order. So that way you couldn't just by fluke get an intermediate, but not having gotten the basic. and then come back, and try to attack them. You have to achieve all three of them in order, or it doesn't count. And, with what you were just saying about Rogers, that scoring system actually puts a little more teeth into what you just told us.
Well, I mean, and think about it. There's 32 shots weekend only in Rogers out of 125. You can't blow 32 shots of Rogers and hardly pass, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're running out of space after that. You're a low intermediate at that point. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
High basic. So, and that's something I'll say is, people ask me a lot, well, what do you consider like a good shooter from like the personal protection duty sense? Man, for me, the gold standard is if you can go to Rogers and shoot advanced from concealment, you're a bad dude. Like, just period. Like that is a gold standard. You are good. Like my brother Danny comes and shoots it with me. He shoots it from concealment, and he was able his last 2 trips to get advanced from concealment. And to me, that is a heck of an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the other thing I would like to point out about it is that it's such a finely tuned razor edge of skill, and the lines between the skill, and just how any little thing can mess you up. I had actually just started experimenting with contact lenses before I went to Rogers. And what I did not know until I got up there was that it was shifting the dominance in my eyes from right to left.
That's not going to work well.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And I was resistant to a suggestion that one of the coaches made. He's like, let's take a piece of like clear, like Scotch tape, and put it down the left center of the left lens of your shooting glass. That will obscure your left vision just enough that your right eye will take back over as your dominant eye, but you'll still be able to have all your peripheral vision. And I didn't want to do it because I thought it was a crutch. And then finally he walked up to me and said, you're doing this for one run, whether you want to or not. And okay. And he did it. And I shot an advanced score on that one. It's like, all right, we're sticking with this one. And I gave up contacts after that.
Yeah.
I'll just shoot with blurry vision. It's it was that much of a fine just change in skill. And that was the difference. That one thing was the difference between intermediate and advanced.
Yeah.
And, they made a point too with Gabe in his class, the one that we were there for. If you took every one of his misses for the whole week and applied it to one run on the test, that test would have still been an advanced score. And that sounds like your runs. If you shot the 3 125s and the 2 124s, or what it was, you said that was similar level of performance, because you could have taken all of those misses and applied it, and you're still shooting an advanced score. That's an amazing feat. Anything else you want to hit on with Rogers before we move on? You still there?
I'm sorry, brother.
And we are back after the technical glitch. So Kirk, anything else you wanted to cover on Rogers?
No, I think it's a highly underestimated shooting test. And I think the people who have been there understand what it means, but so many people go like, oh yeah, that's like, that's not so hard, is it? And it's like, no, dude, you have no idea. Like most USPSA guys would really struggle with it, because the thing is, test number 6, I believe, which is the no makeup 5-shot right-handed test, and test number 8, the left-handed blast drill. If it weren't for those 2 tests, there'd be 100 people that pass Rogers.
Yeah.
But those 2 tests are rough for anyone, anywhere.
Yeah. I thought of something I'll add here. The one criticism that I have of the Rogers system is that there's no penalty for missed shots other than you don't get points for plates. And so I do see a tendency when people, they try to knock over a plate and they miss, their solution is just, well, I'll throw a bunch of shots at that plate. And that's the wrong thing for like real life shooting.
But I'll counter you this. How often does that work out for them?
It doesn't.
So are they really gaining anything? Right? That magazine's getting emptier and emptier. And
yeah.
I'll tell you this, the thing that's brutal about Rogers is that you have enough time to do everything. There's nothing in there that's like this impossible hard to
Right.
hit standard, but you can't mess up at all. Like,
Right.
like minor errors are punished brutally. And the difference between it and any of the other shooting events is that it is a marathon. You are mentally exhausted at the end of test 9 because you've been shooting for 45 minutes with a couple little breaks while the other guys shoot. But you've done 9 different events testing different things with no margin of error whatsoever. So it's different than anything else out there in a way that I think a lot of people don't quite appreciate.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they said that it was built around 8-round magazines in the 1911. And so there
Yeah.
are some natural pauses in there to allow somebody shooting a single stack to stick a reload to hit the round counts on the stage. So if you're running a 17+1 gun, you're actually at an advantage at that point.
But one of the things I talked to Bill about was like, how did you, like, what kind of equipment did you originally envision this to be run with? And he said 1911, 8-round mag in the gun. You can have 10-round mags in the reloads. That was kind of his vision. Like, yeah, you can have a stendo in the reload, but 8-round mag in the gun. And so I asked him, well, like, if someone's doing it your way, what's the way? And his way, in his word. Now, of course, you don't get extra points or less points or whatever. I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone. But from my conversations with him, the way he envisions it being shot ideally is from a duty holster or concealment with a no more than +2 mag extension in the gun, and then whatever kind of reload mags you want, however tall boy you want those to be, right?
Yeah.
Because there are some spots like you really should have to reload at a couple of those places, and if you're putting in like a 33-round Glock Happy Stick, like you're kind of playing against the spirit of the test at a certain point.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to hit on, Rogers?
Everyone go there. It's Bill is a legend, and if you're not going out to train with him, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. All right. And as a credit to the Gunsight guys, there were 4 guys from Gunsight, including Ken Campbell, in the class that I attended. And there's some, I won't say bad feelings or bad blood between Gunsight and Rogers, but there were some sticky moments in there because Bill actually says some negative things about Colonel Cooper. But the Gunsight guys were there like, nope, we're here to learn your system. We're going to shoot it your way so we can have a standard for comparison. And I thought that was pretty cool on their part.
Well, and I mean, like, I'm a Gunsight fan too. I've got an expert ticket for Gunsight 250, so I've been to both. And another thing people don't realize is that Rogers Shooting School opened up not long after Gunsight did. It was one of the very first like institutional shooting schools available.
Yeah. And it's hidden away in Ellijay, Georgia, and you got to know where it is to find it.
Oh man, hey, I was there one year. I think last year we were there during the Apple Festival, so it was very nice.
He gives you those written instructions on how to get out to it. And I started following my GPS one morning, and thank goodness I was driving a 4-wheel drive pickup truck, because I got on some mountain road, dirt road, and I come up to a point, and you have to cross a creek, and like with no bridge on the dirt road, like you have to go through the water, and I couldn't see the bottom. And my father always told me, you never drive through water where you can't see the bottom. And so I had to back this long bed Chevy 2500 HD back down this winding dirt road till I could get to a point where I could turn it around and go back out to the paved road and actually follow the written directions. So I should have gotten an advanced pen just for that.
There's been a couple of times I thought, we're so lost up here in the mountains, we're just gonna have to start a new life up here. So I understand completely.
All right. The next thing, you are a 2-division Grandmaster in Steel Challenge. Let's hear about that.
So this year I classified in both carry optics and production, Steel Challenge Grandmaster. I really believe Steel Challenge is the most underappreciated shooting sport for people interested in personal protection, but also, like actually knowing how to shoot reasonably well. And I think it's deceptively relevant because, it's 5 targets every stage. There's only 1 stage with movement, 7 of the stages, the same 8 stages every time. only one stage has movement, and it's literally just a little shuffle, you know, a couple yards to your right or to your left. And a way you can envision that stage is it's not 5 robots coming after you, it's one dude with movement. And if you visualize that, ooh, this guy's, you know, it's like a force on force kind of thing. Like this guy's kind of bobbing and weaving. I got to stay on board with him. The thing people get wrong about Steel Challenge is you think fast, fast, fast. And the idea that got me to Grandmaster was, oh, it's 5 hits, 0 misses quickly. That's the sport. Because if you're missing, man, you might get 1 miss, but past 1 miss, you will not hit Grandmaster times. You just, it's nearly impossible. And so from that perspective, we're going to do stand and deliver shooting at about 5 shots at distances ranging from 7 to I think about 35 yards. Now, don't be wrong, targets, some are bigger than they would be in real life, but I mean, hey, if you want to shoot the target right dead center every time, nobody's stopping you but you. And I think it's a great introduction to competition, and it's has less of the stuff that's not relevant for personal protection than the other shooting sports do, because like the way you enter and exit positions doesn't really matter. The way you stage plan doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? My stage plan is typically left to right. Like it's not very complicated. You know what I mean? And so I just think it's this hidden gem that's just out there. And I do everything I can to try to get Timmy's to drink that from that fire hose. But I really hope it catches on more, because I think it is so accessible for beginners and new people, and it's very rewarding for people who take it seriously.
And you pointed out pre-show that that was not from concealment because that's specifically disallowed in the rules.
That is the worst thing about Steel Challenge, is specifically in the rule book, they do not allow inside the waistband holsters, and they do not allow concealment. Now, I was trying to get my classification, so I wanted to make sure I did everything by the rule book. Now, we got local Renegade matches that I always shoot from under a t-shirt. And my under the t-shirt times are no different than my, you know, like USPSA gear times. Like there's no difference. But I didn't want to, you know, have my classification called into question. So I did. Now, could you wear an IWB holster outside your pants under your belt with the t-shirt half covering your shirt? I mean, that's up to your match director. So you know what I mean? There's definitely ways you can play with it with a cool MD, but I wanted those classifications to be legit. So I did it their way.
Okay. Would you make those same statements about Steel Challenge? Would you make those same things for GSSF?
I have not shot GSSF personally, but I'm highly interested in it because I'm a big Glock nerd and I own a ton of Glocks, and I'm a Glock advocate. And but I have not shot it myself, so I don't feel comfortable sharing an opinion on it.
Okay, so I'm the other way. I've shot GSSF. I've not shot Steel Challenge. And
well, my understanding is it's more of like a traditional, like kind of bullseye course of fire, but you're transitioning between targets, right?
Well, we'll clarify there are 2 different types of GSSF matches. There are the big outdoor matches, and there's an indoor league, which is like a typical PPC match kind of format. The outdoor league, you have one stage where you have typically 5 paper targets that have various scoring rings on them, and once you get the buzzer, you have to put 2 shots on each target as fast as you can go, and they're scored A, B, C, or D, and you know, you get time added if you're in like the Charlie Delta or you have a mic. Then there's just typically a stage that has 4 paper targets and a steel target, and you got to put 2 shots on each paper and hit the steel or knock over a popper if the range has them. And then you have I think it's 4 runs on a plate rack. It's been a few years since I've shot a match, and it's the total time of all your stages and penalties and everything combined, and lowest score wins.
Well, I just a thought occurred to me while we talked about these 2 sports, but I think it's relevant for several things, is that one of the things I think you really get in shooting matches, and I'm agnostic on what sport, I mean, I have my preferences, but they're all good, is that shooting targets at different focal planes and different depths, I think is very important. Because if you're like, in a lot of like Timmy classes, we'll line up the 7-yard line, we'll hang out there like a long time, right? But I really think that idea of like, I want to shoot something at 3 yards, something at 25 yards, something at 7 yards in the same sequence, you're having to do things with your eyes that just are not the same as if I'm on the same focal plane for everything I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally got a lot more value out of Glock GSSF matches than I did the IDPA matches that I shot. I've never shot USPSA, so I can't comment on that. One of the things was it was a repeatable test, and so I could measure benchmarks across matches. Whereas IDPA, the only way you can really do that is really the classifier, or the traditional old classifier before they started doing the 5x5. And I've noticed one thing that was interesting is that the guys that were trouncing me in IDPA, if we showed up at a Glock match, some of the guys couldn't get within 20 seconds of me in a Glock match. And I thought that was a very glaring differences in, you mentioned was still challenge, how you get into a position, how you get out of a position. Okay, when track and field is involved, I suck. But if it's stand and deliver, I could do pretty good. And that might have been why I like the Glock matches better than the IDPA as well. Because we tend to want to go to the things we do better at.
For sure. And that's also one of the things I like about Steel Challenge is the metric tracking part of it. Is that it's the same 8 events. Like, your times. And as you're shooting, oh, that was an 8 last time. Yeah, do a little better than that, right?
Yeah.
And so while you're shooting, you kind of know what's happening in a way that just is not analogous in the movement shooting sports like IDPA and USPSA.
Okay. Now, speaking of USPSA, you have made master from concealment shooting carry optics, correct?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, there's a lot of like M's and GMs that shoot from concealment occasionally, but I classified as M in CO last year from under a t-shirt, right? I know Gabe's done that, and I presume a couple other people have too. But yeah.
Gabe is like that cartoon character Archie that his closet's full of the same outfit.
Yes, he is.
Gabe wears that same shirt from Target. Like, he can even tell you what the manufacturer part number for it is.
I would not be surprised if he's invested in stock on the company that makes them.
Yeah. Like, every time I've seen him, he's been wearing that shirt and the same pair of pants. And it's
you know what? I'm a little guilty of that. You look back at like my match footage and ride footage and stuff like that, and I got that South Narc T-Rex shoots from 2 shirt on quite a bit for the same reason.
Yeah. I found a button-up shirt that I liked from one of the big stores like Bass Pro or something like that. And I wore it at a class and I really liked it. I went back and I bought every different pattern of it that I could get in stock that day. Just because it would be so many shirts that they wore the same way, that the hem would be in the same spot and everything. It's just
that's a living with guns thing that I think a lot of people don't get the importance of, because like you got 2 routes you can do, right? You can do at an advanced level. You can do what Gabe does and just say, nope, this is me. I will be a Simpsons character. I got the same look every time, right? And that's awesome because there's 0 variation. His draw is identical on the range, in a match, in the streets, everywhere. He's committed to that, and he gets advantages from that, right? But another approach is, you want to get to where when I try on clothes, because I don't wear a lot of like I've got I wear 511 in the range a lot, because to me it's like a gi for gun stuff. Like, this is here to get torn up and dirty and beat up. It's an analog for clothing. It's not my street clothes, because I don't want to wear my street clothes all the time. But you learn, okay, what about how these things fit and how these things come together? What are those desirable features about hemlines and, like how much room you have in the shoulders and length and things like that, to where you can go to the mall and try on different things, yeah, that'll work. Or like, nope, that's not going to work. And that's somewhere you really want to get to. And the only place you're going to get that is you need lots of experience shooting from concealment, right? And that's why I like idea of, hey, go shoot a match from concealment, because you'll learn so much about it versus just kind of head gaming it, right?
Yeah. I've gotten now where all the pants that I buy come from Duluth Trading Company because of the way they wear. With the shirts, it's funny how like a little bit different of material, a little bit different of the hang of the shirt really changes the draw.
Absolutely. Like when I went to Rogers, I had 5 matching shirts. Like, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to be messing with, oh, it's a little bit different on Tuesday. It's a little bit different. Like, you know what I mean? And is that gaming it a little bit? Absolutely. Yep. But I mean, I didn't bring a Taurus either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, setting yourself up for success is a part. Like, who was it? Someone was saying something at some match or event, and they use suboptimal ammunition or something, and my retort was just, hey man, gear selection is part of the match.
Yes, it is.
And it's not just part of a match, it's part of a, God forbid, if you're ever in a fight for your life, the gear selection you made may impact your outcomes, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I don't do the appendix carry thing, is because my job is my pistol's got to be a strong side hip. And I've got 23 years, I don't know how many thousands of repetitions of that's where my pistol is. And I don't want to get cross-wired in that pivotal moment, at the convenience store off duty. And I have to go to my pistol and it's not where I expected it to be.
No, and my thing on that is like I am a appendix carry advocate, but I'm not an appendix carry zealot. Obviously, I've classified master class. I've podiumed at 2 IDPA majors. The only 2 I've been to, I've managed to podium at from 3 o'clock. My steel challenge stuff, GM from 3 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I suddenly forget how to shoot,
Right.
depending on where one is. But if you're living and your job is you're carrying a gun at 3 o'clock all the time, man, I probably just carry 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be really messing around with the appendix too much.
Yeah.
And because it's all give and take. There's very little free lunch in all this stuff. And if you're going to tell yourself, like, what's really important to me is, hey, I own my draw. Well, man, 3 o'clock's great. Why not?
Yeah. One of the I kind of thinking about when I retire, I might go to appendix carry with a stub nose K-frame revolver, but just for the concealment option of it, because right now, if I get busted carrying concealed, big deal. What are they going to do to me?
Don't matter.
I'm legal here in all 50 states, so it's not like I'm going to run into legal problems unless I cross into some sort of off limits place. But that, while it would still be legal for me to carry under federal LEOSA in all 50 states, the headache quotient could go up. And so I'll be much more concealed. And I actually had an experience late last year where I was legally carrying, we're in a location, but there was a high headache factor had I gotten discovered. And so I actually went to a J-frame for that. And I don't like carrying just with a J-frame as a primary. And that goes, Claude Warner's thing for firearms instructors, get a real job. And try to pull.
I'll jump in on that is, this is where I think there's no such thing as the gun culture. There are gun cultures and there's dozens of them, right? And I hear things like, I was in this forum and it's a high signal forum. It's a good place. And somebody was complaining about IDPA. They won't let them carry it now. Now they're allowing appendix, which is super neat, but they're saying, oh, I can't carry my gun like. And somebody comments something like, well, they don't understand that most people carry appendix with a flashlight now. And I just read that and I was like, what level of echo chamber are you on, my dude? Have you been to a public range ever? Like, 1, you're lucky if they own a holster. 2, you're lucky if they've ever practiced with it. 3, if they practice with it, you're looking probably at some, abomination from Uncle Mike's with, a Glock 19, a Glock factory sights. Like, there is no, well, everyone's doing this. Like, in your subculture, yes. But 1, is your subculture right about that? And I think it's an open question.
Yeah.
And 2, it's very myopic. You're not really getting an accurate picture of what goes on out there.
And quite frankly, you go to an IDPA match, stand around at the end of the match and watch people. They go take their gun off, put it in a bag, and put that bag in a car in their trunk, and they don't put on a carry gun before they leave the range.
Oh no! The hilarious thing is what I do is I get off the line, I take off my 3 o'clock holster, I grab my loaded gun from the car. It's already in the holster. It's holstered, and I just put it on appendix and I drive home. And I've seen people look at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, what have you been doing all day? Like, what's this for?"
Yeah. Yeah, I always have my carry gun, and I just take the whole holster off and I secure it in the vehicle while I'm shooting the match. And when the match is over, the game, the gear for the match goes back into my bag. I put it on and I pick up my holstered pistols, like you're saying, and I put it back on. And, you do see some people, because ranges have cold range rules, you'll see 1 or 2 people stop outside the gate and get out and put on a carry gun so they're not violating the range rules. But everybody else that left didn't do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. And well, and that's, I'll touch on 2 points. One that we were getting into about the, Claude Warner's get a real job. I absolutely agree with that. You know what? Don't be wrong. I'll carry some pretty Gucci guns. You'll see me rocking a bore sight with the X300 and an SRO on it. I like that gun. I shoot it real good. You'll also catch me rocking a slimline Glock with 48, also sent to bore sight, but iron sights with the shield mag. Like you might see me with either. Every now and then you might see me with a SIG 365. You know what I mean? Like, but I practice with all of them, and I'm pretty good with all of them, right? And I think there is this thing where there's a kind of a Timmy bro thing where it's if you're not carrying a metal frame, this, that, or the other crazy gun of the week, you're going to get killed in the streets. And part of me kind of wants to just say, bro, if you can't do it with a Glock 19 with iron sights, maybe you can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a counterpoint. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's a feeling I have. I've fully explored it.
All right. Well, speaking of that, you are also a master in USPSA from concealment with an iron sighted pistol, correct?
No, with carry optics.
Carry optic. Okay. All right.
I mean, if I cranked at it, I could probably do it limited minor too. But
okay. That was from Steel Challenge was 2 divisions, so that was the
yes.
with iron.
I'm an IDPA master in 3 divisions. I want to say CCP, ESP, and CO.
Okay. Cool. How do you equate skill from IDPA to USPSA? Like if you're a USPSA B class, where would that put you in IDPA? Or can they make that cross comparison?
I think it's easier to go the other way. I think a IDPA master is going to be a pretty strong B class USPSA shooter. Okay. Like a rock solid B to a weak A.
All right, John Hearn, that question was for you. John and I were actually having that discussion yesterday.
Yeah, and that's from just seeing guys, because I shoot both. I shoot with guys who shoot both, so that's just my evaluation. Now, one thing I will say is that 5x5 classifier in IDPA, man, if you want to evaluate where you are as a shooter, I think that's an excellent evaluation. And to give you an idea, like if you're going to be someone that's getting paid to teach people how to shoot and how to defend themselves, man, you should really work to be expert at that 5x5. That's not master. That's the one right below it. But if you make a living, you're a local trainer, you're whatever, you should really push yourself to be able to do expert at that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. So anyway, when Bill Wilson first rolled that out and before IDPA had adopted it, I ran it in a class for all of my guys at the sheriff's office, and I have them running it, and I hadn't shot it, but I have them doing it. And so a couple of the guys were like, all right, big guy, what do you think you would do on this? And I looked at all the strengths, everything, said, probably about 24 seconds. And they said, well, get up here and show us. Let's see you do it. Because most of them were shooting mid 30s, low 40s. And I stepped up and like cold out of the box, shot a clean 16. And I had like, wow, like blow the smoke off the barrel and put it back in the holster. And I typically am around 18 or 19 on it clean. That day was one of the days the angels were on my shoulder on it. Sometimes I'm just a little over I think the last few times I've shot it with carry optics, I've been like 19 something, which is just over just below the master line on that.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of a benchmark I've been using as I've been training with the optic pistol, was that test.
It's an excellent test because it covers a lot. And at 10 yards, you have to know how to shoot. Like there's just at 10 yards, it's hard. Putting an 8-inch circle at 10 yards with a time constraint, you can't fake that, right? You either know how to do those skills or you don't.
Yeah. And it's a pretty low round count test.
I think it's 25 rounds.
Yeah. To give you like a national level of skill benchmark.
Well, because I think the Range Master Bullseye course is also 25. So you could shoot both those back to back with 1 box of ammo and have yourself a pretty interesting day, right?
Yeah. There you go. Some of the other benchmarks, you are tied at #1 with my sheriff at 1033 on the casino drill.
Yes.
And I actually have your run on video. That's on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to go look at it.
Man, I was desperately trying to figure out how to get that on my Instagram, but I'm too much of a boomer, man. I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Okay, so, I'll download it for you and send it to you.
Cool. And yeah, no, casino drill is great. I mean, if you want to ask me what I think I'm good at, I think I'm good at evaluating various shooting tests, taking them apart, and figuring out how to win at them, right? And the casino drill, what I like about casino drill is it's, in my opinion, a task overload drill. It's trying to make you think about a lot of things at once and seeing how you shoot while you're managing a lot of different things. And I think that's a really neat test. That's one of the reasons I like it, is it's unusual in that kind of like task overload kind of thing. Because most other stuff is like shoot the thing, reload, shoot the other thing. This is shoot the thing, surprise reload, different targets. I got to count, like, I got to do a reload and then resume counting, right? And that's what discombobulates all sorts of people. And that's why I like it. I think it's a really good drill.
Yeah, it's not a hard drill that's hard to shoot clean in the part-time, but
No.
it is a drill that if you want to start pushing, say, to get below 13 seconds.
I'd say like mid 12s, 13 is where you start getting spicy.
Yeah.
Mid 12s is a spicy score on that.
And that's where you start to get where you cannot make a mistake.
No, there's very little. Like when I look at my video, I've watched that video of me getting 1033. Like I got time I can make up there, mostly on the reloads. My reloads weren't great, but my shooting was about as good as I can shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now this is one thing, a statement I want to make just kind of for the world. Or hopefully the conversation goes this way when we talk about, like the relevance of matches and what they mean. What you do on your home range with your buddy recording you does not matter.
Right.
Like, because I could show you somewhere, I think I may have deleted already. Somewhere there's a video of me shooting like a 920 casino drill clean. It doesn't matter. Like what matters is in class with Uncle Tom, with Tom watching you, and you not wanting to screw up in front of Tom, because Tom's a cool guy, and if you screw up bad, don't make fun of you, right? So you want to do it right. That is a totally different thing than, hey, look, Instagram, I'm the superstar, blah, blah, blah. Like, just, I don't care about that. No one cares about that. And if you brag about that too much, you're kind of telling on yourself a bit.
Yeah. One of my pride moments is that of like the top 6 scores or 7 scores now on the casino, 5 of them are from our agency, and the other 2 are you and Lane Thayer. And Lane's taken from one of my classes. And so that's pretty big deal for me personally on a pride point that my guys have succeeded. And I love to tell people at range master classes, like, yeah, I can shoot this usually in 13 something, and I'm not even the top 5 of my agency.
Well, what it shows is the type of coursework you're developing with your guys puts an emphasis on multiple task management while you're shooting.
Yeah.
And that's, if you're I'm not a cop, but if you're asking me what would be a useful shooting skill set for a cop, that seems pretty handy.
That would be a useful skill set for anyone, I would think.
Agreed. But generally speaking, y'all are kind of arriving at chaos and trying to thin slice what the heck's going on and establish order, right? Which is a different mission set than I have, right?
Yeah, but once the fight starts, the mission's the same for everybody.
Fair.
Yeah. You've got 2 turbo pins from Gabe White's standards.
Yep. One with irons, one with the dot.
Yep. That's one of those things. I've taken this class 3 times, and I can shoot light pin on demand, and I can give you some turbo runs, but for me to pull a turbo pin is going to have to either be a massive amount of work or a fluke day. And so I've satisfied myself. If I can stay at the point where I shoot a light pin on demand, then I'm happy with my skill set. The fact that you pulled 2 turbos out of that's just outstanding.
Well, I'll share a funny story. Like how I got this last turbo pin is kind of funny, right? The first one was just I took a class with him in Oklahoma, circa like 16, 17, sometime around that. And this one, I kind of had this weird idea because I got my black belt patch with my second black belt patch with Scott Jezelinski in February. I won Taccon, the paper match and the shoot off in March. And then I won 25 Rogers 3 times in June. And I was kind of looking around. That was all I had on my agenda. And I was like, man, what if I went for a fast coin? And so I signed up for Langdon. I pulled the fast coin and said, all right, what's left? What if I've already got a turbo pin, but what if I could do all this in the same calendar year? So I just couldn't get to Gabe. My work schedule, and we're dealing with a lot of health problems. My dad, I could not get the stars to line up. And John Johnson invited me to, do a little AIing for him in a class he was doing at Conroe, and I realized, man, maybe I can get Gabe to Houston. That's a straight flight for Gabe. So I paid for a private, got his plane ticket, flew him over. And so I helped AI that class with John, and then Gabe, I paid for a private lesson with him because you can take a private with him and shoot for the pin. And I did a little, like 3-4 hour lesson with Gabe. And I'll tell you, by that December, I was physically and emotionally exhausted and completely burned out on shooting. Like when I was headed up there, driving up to Conroe, I was like, oh, what am I doing? This is going to be such a waste of time and money. I'm bringing poor Gabe out here and I'm going to blow it because I'm just exhausted. I don't care about shooting right now. I'm burnt out. And so it's my turn to shoot for the pin. And it's the bill drill first. And traditionally, if I'm good at something, I'm good at bill drill. Right? And so I'm like, all right, this is my power totem. I'm good at this stuff. I'm going to start off great. And I blow both bill drills, 2 fails.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, that's the one I'm good at. Right. And so I'm now not really in my best mental space, but I tell myself, okay, look, I'm down 2. I got to get 4 out of the next 6. Do what you know how to do. And I cleaned the next 6. So I got the next 6 fine. But I just had to kind of have that wake up call of like, yes, I am burnt out. Yes, I am tired. I still have to make it happen. Right. And then after that, we shot John's test, and I set the record with test with no name, which is kind of hilarious. Yeah. And he got all the runs where we blew it afterwards. He got the run where I blew it afterwards because I had one where I didn't load my mags right, so let me try it again. And I blew the next one. But the one where I actually got it did not get recorded, which is the funny part. But that was the closeout for my shooting year last year.
Right. And you were the record holder on keeper's test, right?
Yeah, 2:14 if I remember right. I think he's done it faster, but I think I'm the student record holder like in class.
Well, I got to point out to you, while you do have a patch from me on the test for which details are conspicuously scant, you are not the in-class record holder.
Damn.
So now
I just have to come take a class with you, Lee.
I just threw that down on the table right here. Yep.
Yeah, my cheek stings. It hurts. The gauntlet.
Yep, you are not the in-class record holder. The record holder is Scotty Cronin from Gunset up in Ohio.
I've had to learn that, you know what, there's a lot of good shooters out there, and there's just no way to be the best at everything.
Yep. And all right, you have won the Taccon match multiple times.
Yeah, I can run through that. So the first time I attended was in 16. I want to say my first class with Tom, it was in either 12 or 13, probably 12. And I took class in 12. I think I did my first instructor class in 13. I really enjoyed his teaching style. I really enjoyed that he was grounded. His approach is grounded in personal protection, but he doesn't use that as an excuse for nobody to know how to shoot well. Like he wants you to shoot well too. And I gravitate to those guys, right? And gals, the people that are grounded in personal protection, but expect you to know how to shoot too. And because there's a lot of guys who want you to know how to shoot, but don't know anything about fighting. There's lots of guys that, know a lot about fighting, but man, watching them shoot makes you depressed, right?
Yeah.
And so I like the guys that kind of have that Venn diagram, like a good overlap of the two. So I really like Tom's training. And I can even count the range master classes I've taken at this point. And so I'd always heard about Taccon. And this was actually the last one that was in Memphis. It wasn't in the mothership. It was at that police range out there.
Yeah.
And I went into that. Now, at that point in my life, I didn't do really any competitive shooting. I was just doing classes and Timmy stuff and just my own practice. And so I went to that and I heard, okay, there's a match. I'm like, all right, who's in this match? And I was just like, oh my God, these are like the legends. These are guys whose books I've been reading since I was a kid. These are like, like I'm a gun nerd. These are like my heroes, right? I'm like, okay, the goal is not to embarrass myself. Like I just need to go and not make a big error, and we'll see what we can do today. Because I didn't, at that time, my only real shooting accomplishment, I want to say, was my expert ticket at gun sight. So, I mean, I was a pretty good shooter, but like I hadn't done much big at that point, if I recall correctly. And so I went into it with the attitude of just don't miss. I know how Tom structures things, and Tom is extremely unforgiving of poor marksmanship. So all I got to do is shoot as fast as I can and not miss, and I think I'll be okay, right? And so I shot the match, and it was funny. I went out and had dinner with my brother and my dear friend Mike Hickerson, who's one of my favorite people. And he was like, he's a little East Texas dude. He's like, "How'd you do the match?" And I was just like, "Man, I don't know. I don't know. There's some rough spots in there. You know what I mean? It wasn't perfect. I kind of, messed up a reload a little bit and whatever. And the practical part, I'm not sure I did it fast enough, because there's a paper portion and then like a little mini like USPSA stage with the mannequin targets Tom likes. So I wasn't sure how I did. When they published the results, there was as much distance between me and second and ninth place.
Yeah.
And that was a really weird moment for me because
Yeah.
I was aware at that time that I was pretty good. That, I could go to gun classes. I'd usually get, Top Gun or, almost or whatever. But it was at that moment I realized I had the potential to be good if I applied myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like an awakening for me. That was I'm going to get good. I'm going to go to the next level. Because at the time I was doing jujitsu. I think it was like a blue belt at the time, or almost a blue belt. So I was doing the martial arts thing and I was doing the shooting thing, but I realized, man, I can really, if I push myself, probably do some cool stuff. And that was a turning point for me as a shooter.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, with those Taccon matches, man, usually they are such fine tuned that there's usually not much separation between the top shooters. And it's like the top 10 to 15 spots can completely flip from one year to the next. And
Yeah, no, for sure. Like evaluating Taccon is a test, right? Because that's if I have a gimmick, it's that. So evaluating Taccon, I'm giving away all my secrets. I'm going to have a harder time like at all this stuff. But evaluating Taccon, what is consistent is one, every year it's different. So every year you don't know quite what to expect. But Tom has certain philosophical beliefs in how he structures things that you can always rely on. Tom doesn't care too much about reloading because reloading doesn't matter, right? Tom doesn't care too much about fancy footwork because fancy footwork doesn't matter. What Tom cares about is drawing quickly, firing accurately, and keeping your head in the game while you're shooting, right? Like correct procedural orders of things.
Yep.
And so, it'll probably be something along those lines. You can kind of, when you're mentally preparing, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but those will be the key principles, right?
Yeah.
And what I like about the Taccon match is there's a large element of randomness to it. This does not make for good USPSA, but I think, from a philosophical perspective, in all of this, I think you agree with me to be true, is that you can do everything right and lose.
Yep.
The gunfight can start with you getting shot between the eyes and your turn is done, right?
Yep.
There's no guarantee that your skill or awareness or experience, there are Delta guys that have been killed by goat herders. It happens, you know what I mean? And so one of the elements I like about Taccon and the way Tom structures it is there's no guarantee. Like you can lose no matter who you are.
Yep.
But at the same time, he focuses on skills that matter. And so he'll usually do like some sort of paper exam, and that's kind of just to get your top guys kind of, like put in a barrel. And then he'll do something that has some element of hit factor, 5-yard roundup or something. And then after that, it's the shoot off. And, this last year he did it both as, there's an award for paper match and for the shoot off, which I think that's the first year he did that, but I wasn't there in 19, so I can't tell you.
Yeah.
So 17, I go to the match and I'm in this weird place where I'm like, oh dang, I'm the champ. Like what does that mean? I've never been champion anything in my life. I mean, I did good at impromptu speaking at UIL when I was a kid, but I never really been a champ, nothing else. And so I went to that match, and literally before I went up to shoot, and they're like, all right, Clark coming up. I got a phone call from now my business partner saying that one of our most important key employees in the business had just died in a boating accident. And not only was he a key employee, he was just a hell of a human being. His sister had received major head trauma. I wasn't sure if she was going to make it. Like, it was just a bad scene for somebody I cared about, and somebody who, beyond just being a coworker and someone you respect and value, was a very important guy who knew where a lot of the keys were in the business. So I get that call. That's in my computer. I was like, all right, Clark, come up and shoot. It's like, oh my God, okay, let's try it out. And I won 17 by like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second. I barely won that one. That one was tough. 18, I managed to fillet my hand the week before Taccon 18. So my left index finger was in a splint, and I was desperately trying to get it to heal. It would not heal well. I got to shoot at Aaron Ackland's place. Aaron's a heck of a guy and a good shooting instructor. Go spend some time and money with him. I just said, man, I need to try to shoot. I need to see if I can even shoot with his hand, you know? And so Aaron let me go to his place and just practice with him for 2 hours. And at the very end of that practice session, I said, you know what? I'm going to pull the trigger with this left index finger and see what happens. Pulled the trigger on one round out of a Glock 34 and completely reopened everything, blood everywhere, nightmare. And I was just like, oh man, okay, we're just going to figure this out. So my goals changed to make it to the shoot off. Like, I don't care if I lose. I just get to the shoot off and I'll be satisfied with myself. So I shoot the paper match. I do okay. We do 5-yard roundup as the kind of like the hit factor section to get to the last 16 guys. And I have to shoot the 5-yard round-off portion, the left-hand portion, using my middle finger in my left hand, which is kind of funny, but I managed to pull it off. And then I get to the shoot-off, and I'm like, oh, hey, well, maybe I can do this. You know what I mean? Like, maybe this is a thing that can be done. And I make it through a couple rounds. I get to Gabe. Gabe beats me fair and square. You know, like, I go for one, he goes for one. And then on the third one, I just have a bad mental error and I screw up, and Gabe is just the samurai he always is, and he takes me down, right? Yep. Then they have me shoot against another dude to see who got third, who got fourth. I got third, and that was my story on 18. And then we can go on to 21, or if you want to talk about something about the previous ones, we can do that too.
Well, I'll point out that 17, I finished 14th and I had a malfunction.
Which is very respectable. If you're clearing the mouth and getting that high, that's a good run.
And I actually thought that I had a better match in 17 than I did in 18, where I finished 6th, and you actually eliminated me in the shoot off.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Hey,
I still love you, Lee.
and he said, I love you too, man. And it was like, I remember walking up and going, this is the only chance I ever have to beat Kirk, because he's got like a splint on a finger. And then it's like, I didn't even do it now. And I walked off. But what the funny thing about that is, the very next year, Gabe won it in 18. The very next year, neither Gabe nor I made the shoot off.
Oh yeah, there's what's beautiful about Taccon is there's a large element of chance. I mean, there's a reason in USPSA they basically got rid of shoot offs, because it's very chance oriented. But real life is chance oriented, so that's why I don't mind it. And the other thing is, it's very entertaining for the spectators, and that's part of the game. We're entertaining people too when we do this stuff. So I like it. I think it's cool, right? Like, if you want to see who is the absolute best shooter in every possible respect, compare two people's performance at USPSA Nationals. That's how you do that. Taccon's doing something different.
Yeah, you know, the 21 Taccon, something happened in the finals, and I was standing there watching it. I wasn't able to shoot the match in 21, but I went over to see the finals. And who was it you shot against in the semi, when it was down to the top 4?
My first round was against Cagle. I don't remember. I went against someone else after. I did go against someone else. I don't remember the order, because one of the two in the middle was my buddy, one of my dearest friends in the world, Marcus Klintmon. And it was hilarious because we both got on top 16. And I looked at him, I'm like, Mark, I love you, but I'm gonna take you down.
Who was it you beat in the final?
The final was against a Gabe Schutzer, who's another guy I've been shooting with since I shot a Todd Green class with him in 2012. Like, I've known Gabe a long time.
All right, so the semi was against Tim Kelly then, if I'm.
That was it.
Yeah,
it was Tim Kelly and Marcus Klintmon. I don't remember which order, but I shot the two of them in the middle.
It was against Tim, and the instance I'm thinking of, I was standing there watching, and you had been rocking along, and I don't remember if Tim got you on the first one or if you won the first run on it, but there was a physical and mental switch that you flipped, like your whole physical demeanor changed and was like, all right, boys, this is it. I'm going to do it. And I looked over at whoever was standing next to him. I said, this is over. Give him the trophy. And they said, oh no, this isn't like whatever. I said, no, this is over right now. Give him the trophy. Kirk just won this thing. And you went on that run and won it.
What happened was I actually went 9-0 in the shoot off, so no one got around it. What happened was our poppers kissed. Like our poppers like touched on the way down.
Hey, Kirk, your phone all of a sudden is freaking out, going something really.
Can you hear me? Are we better?
Yeah, you're really faded out. You're really tinny sounding.
Oh no. You want me to call you back, or let me see if I can check out the audio.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I live in the hinterlands, so you know it's hard.
Okay, I can barely hear you now.
Okay. Let me see if I can kill the audio and start back, or do you want to just restart the Zoom?
Okay, I'll stop the recording and we'll restart it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
Sorry. All right, Kirk, go ahead.
So there I was, we're shooting with Tim Kelly. I remember I went 9-0 in the shoot off. So what happened was Tim nearly caught me. Like our poppers kissed, right? Like, and that's too close. You don't want that. And that's when I said, all right, I got to do what I know how to do and cut out the noise. And I kind of went beast mode after that. And that's the thing I learned how to do at Rogers. Was for many years, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what can I do to reduce anxiety, breathing exercises, 4-step breath and things like that. And at Rogers, I don't remember what trip it was, but I finally realized, man, I was just hands shaking, anxiety ridden. And I just shot a 124 or something like that. And I was like, if I can shoot a 124 freaking out, I can shoot anything freaking out. And so I no longer spent any time trying to like manage my anxiety. Rather, it was like a radical focus on task fixation. This is what I need to do. This is what I'm going to let enter my mind and nothing else. And however I emotionally feel about it is unimportant. And that I reiterated that to myself after that very close call. And then after that, it was pretty good.
Yeah. It was your actual physical demeanor changed. And it was just like, okay, it's over. It's over. All right. So let's move on. BJJ purple belt.
Yeah, I'm really bad at jiu-jitsu, but I think it's fun. It's like golf. You don't have to be good at it to enjoy it. But actually, I haven't trained in 2 years because COVID. I didn't want to get dad sick, so I dropped out, just thinking, oh, this COVID thing will be over in a few months. And well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so recently, last week, my dad passed. And so I knew I needed jiu-jitsu more than ever, kind of as a therapy thing more than anything. And so I actually did my first roll back in 2 years, almost to the day last night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've gotten to do the Cecil Birch's coursework quite a bit. Had the privilege to AI for him, I think once or twice. Love his stuff. I've gotten to do a lot of Craig's coursework. I caught half of Paul Sharp's MDoc. I've done some of the red zone stuff with Jerry Wetzel, which is excellent. I've also done a lot of BJJ seminars with, like people like Jeff Glover and Andre Galvao and Tom DeBlas. I've done wrestling seminars with Josh Barnett. I've done 2 Sambo camps with Riley Bodycomb. So I've tried to get, I know a little bit about a lot, but I'm not amazing at grappling. I don't have the right attributes, I think, to be an amazing grappler, but I don't want to be illiterate when it comes to fighting. So I just keep working at it.
One of the things you mentioned pre-show is that there's a lot of crossover between like the BJJ and the firearms guys and the differences between the sport and the application. You want to touch on that?
I'd say there's 2 sides to that. I'd say that that on one hand, you in both have a thing that is in theory about self-defense. But there's a lot of questions, I think, open questions about, well, like, what do we mean when we say that? And then also, the majority of the community, the people who actually participate, are sport-oriented or recreation-oriented, right? And so you have that tension between this is about violence, which is a very serious subject, and keep it playful, have a good time, go have fun at the range, right? It's there, that same tension exists in both. So I think that's one kind of node of questions and things we're working on or talking about. And then the second node is, man, I hear some of the same dumb stuff in both these communities, and it drives me nuts. And because you'll hear stuff and you'll get like the true like jujitsu Kool-Aid drinkers who are like, jujitsu, it saved my life. Like the smaller man can beat the bigger man. And don't get me wrong, it's true. The little guy with training can whoop up on a big guy without training. But they do jujitsu. One of the greatest things about that sport versus other arts is in the big tournaments, they have an open division. It's open to anybody, no matter how big you are. Guess what? It's the heavyweights and super heavyweights who win 95% of the time. If you get some middleweight in there getting first or second or something, he's famous. He's selling DVDs after that, right? So while that fundamental idea of jiu-jitsu is true that the smaller, weaker, more skilled person can defend against the larger, stronger person, when skill is equivalent, size and athleticism are absolute factors, even in, you know, the quote unquote gentle art. But you'll get these jujitsu people, you're like, hey, do you want to learn how to shoot? Do you want to maybe carry a gun? They're like, oh no, I know jujitsu, it'll allow me. I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff jujitsu can't do, right? Like 2 dudes at 7 yards with guns, man, jujitsu will do very little for you in that scenario, right?
Yeah.
But conversely, you know, there's a stereotype, you know, like kind of like the fuddy gun guy who's like, well, I'll just shoot him if they try to get too close. I got perfect situational awareness. I'm like, man, if the fight starts with you getting sucker punched and the dude falling on top of you, your shooting skills are unlikely to be helpful from there, right? I mean, perhaps, but you're in for a rough time, especially if this dude's presumably, he's wanting to get in a hand-to-hand altercation with you, either larger, younger, or more athletic than you are, right?
Yeah.
And so both sides often pick the non-answer, which is they reframe the problem to one where they can win and not have to change or grow. And that's just weak, man. That's just weak energy. Like, we should run from that. But I hear that in both communities all the time, and it drives me nuts. You know,
Yeah, that's just like you can only be attacked by one person if you're carrying a J-frame.
Oh yeah, no, you're good, dog. Don't worry about it, right? Well, so an interesting case study in that, because I'll admit, dude, there's before in the dark times before the Filter Enigma existed, there may have allegedly been times that, you know, my carry gun was a Kel-Tec P32 10-round mag, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not much of a gun. And past 7 yards, it's hardly even a suggestion of a gun, right? And there's a case study, I think Asp did a video on it, and it was this guy, he got ambushed by multiple attackers, I think around his car outside a store. He had a J-frame, he returned fire, and the guys took off. They decided they had a pressing engagement elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But then he fell for one of the negative outcomes that Claude Werner talks about, and his instinct was to pursue. And so he leaves concealment and cover with his now presumably half-empty J-frame and proceeds to get shot. Now, I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback that guy. He was a real human being in a real scenario under real stress, and those situations are unpredictable and chaotic, and you're dealing with urges and instincts that are not entirely logical or natural, right? Or are very natural. So I'm not trying to talk bad on him, but man, you know, I'm not saying that a Glock 19 might have solved that for him. I think the decision making was the real error. Right. But going out there with a half full J frame is man, you're a tough dude.
It's suboptimal.
Yeah.
All right. I think we have established here convincingly that you have the credibility in the background to talk about the things that we're going to talk about next. Because I don't think anybody at any point now can say, well, he's not done this or he's not done that, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. If you want to go have a head-to-head match for Kirk, I'll help arrange that. And and we'll see. All right. So Kirk, what do you think normal people can be taught, and how do we do it?
So there's the non-controversial part of my thoughts on this and the controversial part. And the non-controversial part I shared with John Johnson on my recent Ballistic Radio episode with him, but it's worth repeating because I think it's highly important. And I'd like to get this idea out to as many people as I can. One of the ideas I got from William April that was really changed my thinking on a lot of things was the notion he introduced to me of, people looking at something, looking at jujitsu or looking at, carrying a, SIG X5 Legion with a flashlight on it everywhere, whatever, and saying, that's not me, right? And just saying, I'm just never going to do that. There's just some people, it doesn't matter what I tell them, they will never step foot on a jiu-jitsu mat. There's some people that will just never carry a gun, no matter what you tell them. And that's fine. That's not a bad thing. And we shouldn't shame people about that. And we shouldn't treat people like lesser thans because of that, because we all have our own level of comfort and engagement. And there are a lot of people that should not have a gun, just temperamentally or intellectually, or just their decision-making processes or their emotional maturity. There's a lot of people who shouldn't have a gun. Those people, by and large, deserve to protect themselves regardless. And so that's where things like some of the stuff you're talking about with the net the other day, I thought was brilliant, is like boundary setting and, like trying to decide what you're comfortable letting people do or say or engineer situations around with you, right? That is hugely important and largely untalked about in our community. The idea of, okay, physical security, I got the big lock and big gun and all that, but like financial security, man, can I afford to live here in this house with a big gun, big dog, and all the dog food, and all the ammo, the 9mm? Like that's a different question. And I think we need to do a better job of letting people in to the extent they want to be in and they're comfortable being in, because you and I are experts. You more so than I, because you have real world experience, but you and I are experts. Our civil liberties and ability to exercise these rights depend on the millions and millions and millions of people that don't know much, right? And so the more we can do to take those people who have that fundamental, intelligent, true insight where they say, you know what if someday someone tried to hurt me or someone I love? I would want to be able to do something about that instead of just pretending it's not possible. Because most people just pretend it's not possible. I shouldn't have to lock my doors and other, foolish statements. Those people that have that insight, if you start showing them like X300s on your, Walther Q4 steel frames and bill drills and stuff, and like, well, yeah, jiu-jitsu is good, but really you should be doing MMA, and no, MMA is not real either. You should be doing combat sambo, and like you get all these crazy discussions, right? And you are just tuning out millions of people who have the human right to defend themselves and whose opinions and voting patterns determine your rights too. And so I think we need to do everything we can to say, hey, you know what? Pepper spray is not ideal. I don't think it is. But if you're just not going to carry a gun, man, pepper spray, flashlight, awareness, maybe some force on force with those items on you, hugely valuable. And I don't think we've quite cracked the code on that yet. And I think one of the reasons we haven't cracked the code on that yet is, one, there aren't enough of us, right? I mean, Claude talks about this in depth. But two, the traditional trainer model is you have a guy, typically retired or semi-retired, who travels around and does 2-day classes because that's what the logistics of the industry can support. It doesn't make sense for that guy to come do a half day somewhere, right? It's not worth driving 4 states over to do a 4-hour class. It doesn't make sense. It's not bad. It's not fair to that instructor. So we have this model where we're very good at doing 2-day classes, and we're very good at doing like big institutional NRA style training that's very okay at best, right? So we're really good at these 2 chunks. But I think, and I don't have the answer for this, but I'm asking the other people who care about this question to help me think about it, is what is that next, and I see some of the things Filster's doing and some of the things that Langdon Tactical are doing as far as like, hey, normal people, here's some ideas, here's some way to think about that. I think that we're moving in that right direction, but I'm not sure we're there yet. And I'm asking all of y'all, like, how do we get there? Because if it's just us 1%ers, like tactical people, That's not enough.
Yeah, I think that's one area in which the martial arts community is so much further ahead than the gun community is, you can do martial arts in any room,
Yep.
but finding a place to shoot is much more challenging. And what I run into with the gun business is there are some very fantastic indoor ranges in my area, but they won't let anything but their in-house instructor teach classes there.
And 90% of the time, that guy might be okay, but 90%
Yeah,
of the time, he's not you, right?
right, right. And I did during the pandemic, and when ammo was just so hard to get, I did a bunch of half-day classes. Yeah, I did a bunch of 50-round workshops is what I call them. And that managed to keep my business sustained and going and got people to the range because they could get 50 rounds of ammo. But in the long term, if I have to charge a range fee on top of what I've got to get to make it worthwhile for me to come to it, that's pretty expensive for a half-day class.
It's hard for both of you. It's hard for the
Yeah,
student. It's hard for you, and it's not even great for the range owner either, right? Like
right.
that's a workable arrangement, but not ideal.
Yeah, and so it may have been Tom Givens that originally said this, that the biggest threat to the Second Amendment is people running out of places to shoot.
I think that's a very wise observation because I'll tell you, there were years there where I live where my only access to range was an indoor lane range, no rapid fire, no drawing from a holster. God forbid, they want to make sure no one accidentally learns how to shoot in there. So, it's essentially go and turn your money into noise and, pay them money for the privilege of doing so. And man, all I worked was weekend shooting and 25-yard bullseye because guess what?
That's all
You
you
can
can do.
work weekend shooting, 25-yard bullseye, and that's it. So I got pretty okay at both those for a while. And then a real range opened up, and like all truly great ranges, it's kind of a little bit of benign neglect, right? Which is what you're looking for. I think a lot of the infotainment ranges actually aren't that much better than the, oppressive ranges. But it's a berm and privacy, and that's really all you need, right?
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like once you know what to do, once like you and I, that's all we need. Now a newer person needs more structure than that, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the other guy who kind of cracked the code on that is Carl Wren from KR Training in Austin. Carl has been offering that, like, instead of that 2-day class, that 4 like half-day classes in a bundle thing for a long time. And if you live in an urban area big enough to support, like, to have a clientele that can show up frequent enough to make that work, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that model because most people do not have a 16-hour attention span, just period. Right.
Or they don't have 16 hours worth of time to give to it.
Or time off or ammo or whatever.
Yeah. That's why I've gone to, like, even when I travel teach, I'm doing 2 one-day classes. And now I run the risk of not selling out both classes. So I tend to look at it as that one day of that, I need to make all my expenses, and the other day is the profit day. The other day is revenue day. And if I sell both of them out, then great. But you think about it, if you got young children at home, which would be a motivating factor in to learn to defend yourself. Well, are you going to miss their soccer games or their softball games or baseball or basketball or dance recitals or whatever to go learn how to save them? What's the point of saving them at that point?
Well, like I think there's a paradox in this problem. I think it's a paradox that I think is indicated in kind of Claude Werner's work in negative outcomes, is that the truth is the majority of the time in the US, grandma presents a gun and the bad guy leaves. Or grandma shoots the bad guy once in the shoulder and he goes, I have pressing engagement elsewhere. And he leaves and everything turns out pretty okay. Mathematically, that seems to be what happens, right? Even with untrained, poorly equipped, people, right? With the lumpen proletariat of the gun world, it usually works out.
Right.
Now, the other problem, though, is all the time you and I read about kids getting guns in purses and guns being left in cars and guns getting stolen. and the burglar's jumping over the fence and the dude shoots him in the back. We read and hear and see this stuff over and over. In your community, the law enforcement community, we've endured a lot of bad shoots that have had big social repercussions, and a lot of questionable shoots that are not even is it good or bad, maybe, lawful but awful, that have had huge effects on our culture, and bad shoots have had, effects on our culture. And just saying that, well, grandma with the J-fan and the sock drawer usually gets done, that is a true statement, but it's insufficient. And how do the couple hundred maybe of us reach the millions of people out there with J-frames and sock drawers?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible. And I don't think it's, I don't think you're ever going to be flip a switch. Yeah, we're there. But I think anything we can do to be moving in that direction is good.
And, from a business sense, if you can come up with a way to tap into that market just for some sort of awareness training, okay, if you start pulling, a percentage of those people into the other firearm stuff or the other martial arts stuff, okay, that may grow your customer base there. But quite frankly, for a lot of the problems, as you said, a flashlight's the answer.
You're not wrong at all. Like I've had, I'm like everyone else. I've got, a female friend having problems with, ex-boyfriend or something like that. Sometimes they come to me expecting me to be micro Uzi or something. And I'm just like, nah, fam, like,
Yeah.
Here's pepper spray, here's a flashlight, here's how you, check your circumstances, like boundary setting. Let's talk about what you allow. When will you call the cops? Let's game plan. What would make you call the cops on this guy? Like, those are the kind of discussions I have. I'm not the gun fairy, right? I'm the advice fairy. I'm happy to help. But I think too often we get very tool focused, and we want to be creating thinkers, people who can think about problems and come up with solutions that meet their unique circumstances, because there's so many unique circumstances. I can't possibly come up with a solution for all of them, but hopefully I can help you walk through how to come to your own conclusions for what works for you, and not have it just be an ego self-defense play of I shouldn't have to lock my doors, or anyone comes in this house is getting shot, whether or not it's the special needs kids next door. Like, like frankly, I don't have a lot of respect for either of those attitudes, right? And there's way too much of both in our culture.
Yeah, and man, there's just the things that kill me, like these nightstand dump pictures. Or like if somebody's going to a class somewhere and they put all their stuff out on the nightstand in the hotel room and they take the picture and post it. And then you get well, dude, where's your whatever? Where's your X? Where's your Y? Or people are critiquing it like you're going to get killed because you don't have the newest weapon mounted light. Guys, I've been a cop for 23 years. I don't carry a weapon mounted light on my pistol.
Oh my God, Lee.
I'm telling you.
I'll send flowers to your house.
That's right. Yeah. I got nothing against them. I don't do it. I don't like the way the bulk it adds to the gun, the weight it adds to the gun, and the other problems that it brings about. And I can't, well, you can search with it. Paul Carlson made some very good points on that in a recent episode. I want my light separate from my handgun. Now,
to me, that's a shooting light, not a searching light, in my estimation.
Right. Now, when we're going into somewhere to hunt a bad guy, yeah, and I'm putting on a belt that's got rifle mags in the mag pouches. Yeah, my pistol does have a weapon mounted light on it at that point, but my just general walking around, no. Now my long guns all have weapon mounted lights on them.
Oh yeah, no, that's mandatory in my opinion.
Right.
But well, you're getting into some of the social factors of this, and I think the social factors are not commented on enough. And I'll tell you, you brought up a point that I thought was interesting earlier. Hey, the martial arts people are pretty far ahead on this, and I'll actually agree with you on that. Now, don't get me wrong, most martial arts are really bad, right? Like your typical just like strip mall where the sign just says martial arts. Man, what's going on there? You may be teaching kids how to believe in themselves, but that's it, right?
Stop or I'll break another board.
Yeah. And so you have martial arts, traditional martial arts of varying quality. Some of them have some attributes that are pretty cool, some of them are fantasy camp, right? And then you have your fight sports. Now your fight sports, none of them are perfect. Like none of them is the whole total answer, right? that's kind of like your real striking arts, your Muay Thai, your kickboxing, your boxing, and your pretty much all the grappling arts. It's hard to have like just a fake grappling art, just due to the dynamics of how they work.
Yeah.
So, your Sambo, your jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, of course, wrestling arguably being the king of the grappling arts, and stuff like that. And what they do well is you decide one day, you have that fundamental insight at the beginning of this for so many of us is, you know what? I want to be able to take care of myself. You see the sign on the strip mall and you go in. And if you're lucky, it's a jiu-jitsu school or a Muay Thai school or something for real. If you're unlucky, it's something else. And you may pay a lot of money and you may have good friends, but you're not going to know how to fight out your way out of a paper bag on the other side of it. If you're lucky and you end up one of those good places, what'll happen is, like, when I go with jiu-jitsu guys, I love my jiu-jitsu brothers and sisters. Like when I was there last night for the first time 2 years, I was nearly in tears. I was just hugging everybody. It was like Oprah, you know what I mean? And like guys who were like baby white belts on my left are now like tough blue belts, And there's a social part of it that's important, and it's why people keep coming back. You make friends at jiu-jitsu. You miss the people at jiu-jitsu. You want to know, oh man, I hear his kid just going off to college. Or, oh, hey, I heard he's got a big promotion at work. You love those people and you sweat and you suffer with those people and you develop bonds with them. You fight them. You know which ones of them are brave, which ones are smart, which ones are cowards, which ones are bullies. You know all that. And in a way that you can't fake, right? And so you get tight with these people in a way that you really only get with coworkers, family members, and friends, right?
Yeah.
And that social element is hugely powerful in getting people to come back. You get the same thing at a shooting club, at a USPSA match, right? Yep. So at a USPSA match, USPSA is not an ideal recreation of tactical training for street fighting. It is not, right? But man, my buddy Tim, he's such a hilarious guy. I'm all wondering what he's going to say this week. You know what I mean? And like, oh, my buddy Billy, he's working so hard on his footwork. I got to watch him. I got to coach him. I got to help him. And you get involved with these people and you spend time with them and you laugh together and you make fun of each other and you try to build each other up if you're in a healthy club. Now, don't get me wrong. The shooting sports has a really toxic culture, in my opinion, in a lot of places. There's way too much like, these are guys play fighting in a sport where you never get hit. Yeah. And that breeds some weirdness, I think, at a certain degree. Yeah. But there's also a lot of wonderful people too, right? That's what kept me out of shooting sports forever, is I kind of got involved in it a little bit and I did not like the social interactions I had there. And I left for a decade and it cost my development as a shooter. If I've been doing the kind of matches I've been doing the last 2-3 years, for the last 20 years, I would be at a completely different level than I am now. Yeah. But anyway, so that social aspect of, hey, I get to go train with my friends and exercise and have fun, or I get to go out on the range, I get to bust caps and get practice with the same couple people every week, and we get different challenges and different things. I don't think just a normal jiu-jitsu class is the ideal environment for learning self-defense. I don't think a USPSA match is the ideal environment for learning just pure self-defense. But you're practicing a lot of relevant skills and you're tricking yourself into doing it because you want to go hang out with your friends. Yeah. And that's something the Timmy community just doesn't have. Yeah. We haven't cracked the code on that. We don't have, right? Yeah. Because it costs $500 every time I want to go take a pistol class. It costs me $20 when I want to go shoot a match, right?
Yeah. And that's one thing where I would love to have the teaching opportunity, if I could get the logistics of it on that martial arts model, where if I could have people for 2 hours, one night a week for 6 months, where could I get them to compared to the 1 or 2 day class model once or twice a year?
I don't know this for a fact, but in my estimation, I imagine you could get so much more, so much faster that it would kind of knock your socks off. Yeah. In my estimation.
And there's a series of books out there by an author named Dustin Solomon where he kind of gets into the mental part of that. I've kind of experimented on the fly with our personnel. I have found that when I say have like a jailer that I'm supposed to be getting ready to go to the academy, if I bring that person in and their first exposure to firearms training is we sit in a climate controlled room with dummy ammunition and I teach them how to load and unload the pistol correctly and all of that stuff. without firing a live round. Our first trip to the actual range is so much more productive than if I get them to the range and have to teach them how to load and unload the gun.
Well, you were speaking to the choir. Let me tell you this. I recently, yesterday, I have a nephew who's lived far away from me my whole life, so I haven't got to spend a ton of time with him. He's in town, for Dad's funeral. And so his mom wanted me to take him shooting because, I'm the shooting guy, quote unquote, just like all of us are. With our friends and families, we're the shooting guys. So if someone wants to do some shooting, we usually get called. And so he said, hey, take your nephew shooting and, let's just show him the ropes. Well, I spent 3 hours with him. We fired 30 rounds of 22 and 10 rounds of 9mm in 3 hours. Now, there's a lot of talking. There was a lot of dry firing. I begin with my safety ramble, do my safety ramble. Then we talk about how does a firearm work? What are the parts of the firearm? How do you make it loaded when you want it to be? How do you make it unloaded when you want it to be? How do you confirm which of those it is? Then we go over a very broad principle-based discussion of, grip and sighting and posture. And then we do it a little dry and then we go shoot. And we did 2 7-yard groups on a B8 circle with the 22. And I said, all right, now we're ready to test. And we went and shot the test at 10 yards. And I want to say he did something in like a 96 in 998 with the 22 from the test, 10 yards, first time, low ready with a beeper. Then I hand him a SIG Legion and 320 Legion. And we said, all right, now we're going to do center fire. So I let him dry fire it a couple times, feel what the gun feels like. And in 980, he scores, I think, a 93. These are the first center fire rounds he's ever fired, right? But he has a conceptual understanding of what's happening. Whereas I think, and not to cast shade, but I think in a lot of institutional environments, it's, I'm the range master. I'm supposed to teach him to shoot. Let's go to the range. And that I'm not sure is the right answer at all. I think there's a lot more talking involved in all this than perhaps we would like to admit. Because for you and me, we shot a lot. Like talking about it, sure, the philosophical stuff's fun, but like just the mechanical stuff, you and I know it by heart. It's kind of boring, right? But for that new person, they've never heard this before. It's huge for them.
Yeah, one of the things I'm seeing with our personnel now that I'm more hands-on with the training is we've done a really good job of stressing holster skills over the years. And I think our people do an excellent job. They can handle that part of the equation, is get the gun out, get it on target and get shots. But anything beyond that, they start to struggle. And so if the gun doesn't run right or whatever, they have a malfunction or whatever, they're not responding to that in a manner in which I think they should. So that's where our training focus is going for the next while, is going to be on things like malfunction clearing and stuff and gun handling, just straight up handling the gun.
Well, I think there's 2 parts to that. I think the first part is, again, I'm not a police officer. I don't want to speak to your business, but in my estimation, there is no technical shooting skill more important than holster work.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter how good a shooter you are if you get shot in the chest twice while the gun's in your holster.
Right.
Don't matter. No matter where your splits are. Doesn't matter how accurate you are. Doesn't matter. You can shoot left-handed only at a B8 100 yards and get 100 out of 100. If you can't get the gun in the fight, nothing else matters.
Right.
And after that, you got, of course, accuracy, and maybe transitions. But if you're going to pick a technical skill to focus on, holster work, and like that's the thing, people think I'm crazy when like I'll take people on their first day and I'm teaching draws, but there's a reason for that. The reason for that is I get you for 4 hours instead of 3 hours. We're going to do holster work. Is once you know how to operate a holster, you can safely practice on your own. How many times you go to the public range, you see people dangling guns around, pointing to their legs and their hips and everywhere. That to me is the ultimate sign of someone that is unconsciously incompetent. Competent shooters have guns in bags and holsters. And if I don't teach you what that looks like, I'm only ever going to shoot with you a couple times, right? You're going to shoot on your own as much as you want. And if you don't know how to do that safely, I haven't helped you, right? So I think it's good that your deputies are good at that, because they're going to be good at one thing. Man, that's the one I'd pick, right? And of course, accuracy, right? That they have to be able to hit. But the other side, and you bring up an interesting point that I know Chuck Haggard's talked about, is that like in real fights, guns malfunction a lot more than they do on range. And that's something that you watch USPSA guys. There's a lot of USPSA guys that, you know, the train gets off the tracks as soon as something weird happens. Like a double feed happens, and it's just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like if they just have a failure to fire, that's easy enough. They can fix it. But once Mr. Double Feed happens, like I've seen some weird attempts at fixing that USPSA match.
Yep. All right. We're getting tight on time, so we need to move on to a couple of the other questions. I'd really love to stay on that topic, but I want to get to the other things we wanted to discuss. What do you see as the value of competition?
One, it tricks you into doing work, because by considering something fun, you don't think of it as work anymore. Like last night, I went jiu-jitsu for an hour and a half and got beat up. Most people don't want to do that. I convinced myself it was fun, so I did it, right? And I'll say there is a big difference in just technical skill level on the whole. There are exceptions, of course, between your competitive guys. And I'm not talking your world champs. I'm talking your guys that show up to your local matches, right? And let's say your average like street cop. Now, there's nothing about being a cop or a soldier or anything else that prevents you from learning how to shoot. But generally speaking, those are the guys like you that go out and do it on their own, right? Like you put the effort in to learn and seek out training and do stuff beyond your mandated training, right? Yeah. And so what I would say is that the ego investment competitive shooters have in looking good and getting better has pushed many of them way further than the I don't want to get murdered at work that a lot of armed professionals have. And that's a very weird human thing when you think about it. Because you think, I'm wearing body armor, I got a radio to my friends, I've got a gun I got to carry on me, big gun, spare mags, rifle in the truck, because someone might try to kill me. Versus, oh man, old Billy makes fun of my reload every damn time. I'm going to work on that reload till it looks good, because I'm tired of Billy making fun of me. And that guy working on that reload is usually working harder than that guy working on the draw for a life and death thing. And I don't think it's because that cop's a bad guy or something. It's not. It's that competition plays to your ego, and it plays to, you know, it's joyful, it's fun, it's eating a cheeseburger. Whereas like a lot of the guys on the tactical side, they treat everything like broccoli. And man, you can discipline yourself into a lot of broccoli, but at a certain point, you got to find something that you enjoy and will make you do work, because that's how you stay consistent over time.
There you go. And then you mentioned something about what information can we say can be attributed or granted, and I may not have written that down correctly.
So this is where I'm going to get pilloried probably. So I think it was Chris over CDR that said this, is that like plans usually don't happen like they're supposed to, but planning is essential, right? And I think there's an element of that to like, okay, well, like, where I'm not speaking to the soldier cop audience, because I'm not them. I don't have the insight, I don't have the knowledge. But speaking to the average Joe, what's the best case scenario for an average Joe? As far as like how much knowledge and skill and stuff they can develop. Well, that average Joe probably look a lot like Gabe White or me or someone like that. There's a couple Spencer Keepers, someone like us, right? But I see a lot of weirdness in training community about like, well, I only train with guys from this background. And it's like, okay, if you're a law enforcement officer, the lion's share of your training should be from people of that background. If you're a soldier, the lion's share of your training should probably be from people of that background. Now, as a civilian, it's a little different because, you know, both of those backgrounds are relevant, but have unique differences, right? And so I think you're in this situation where they'll say like, well, I trained with him because he did this. And that's something that you can't learn. That's some like, he's the expert, he's experienced, he has this. But he can't give that to you. You cannot osmosis whatever mojo or magic he has. All you can do is be the best normal guy you can be. And you're never going, you have not gone through that sorting process, because I imagine that if you're a cop or a soldier, a lot of picking who you want on your side is I've seen how this person reacts under pressure and I trust them. The civilians, we don't get that because that's not our lifestyle. That's not our job. We don't ever go through that. So to me, what I can get is a mountain of technical skill and a broad array of experiences, force on force and martial arts and shooting, and put that together the best I can to make up as much as is possible for that deficiency in experience, right? Now, if that's the best we can do, what are you really buying when you spend all your time with a guy that you think is the coolest guy? Because on the one hand, we should all get together and figure out who the most badass dude is, like who's been in the most gunfights and great, and we'll all just do classes with only him, right? It's foolish. It doesn't make sense. And because the thing is, they say, well, I know things that can't be taught, and I'll pay me so I can teach them. And it's like, well, wait, you know things that can't be taught. What am I paying for, right? Like you're supposed to be teaching me. And so on the one hand, you need like the views of the people that have been there and done that. They have something that cannot be simulated, right? But how much of that can be transmitted, I think, is an open question. And so I think the right answer is do work with real people with real backgrounds that really matter. That should be the core of your training. But also accept the fact that as a regular person, the best thing you're going to get is a broad a level experience as possible. So you're unlikely to be dealing with novelty beyond the novelty of it being real violence, probably for the first time. And as much technical skill as you can manage so that when it happens, this is a very simple technical problem, because it's going to be chaotic and emotional in a way that, you know, a police officer or a soldier, they're going to go through that many times potentially in their career. As an average Joe, you're probably going to get one ride, right? And you want to be as ready for that as you can. And we don't ever go through that sorting process. You know which guys on your shift you trust with your life, and you know the guys are going, man, I hope he's not the nearest guy on this call, right? We don't get that. And so we have to do our best to work around it. And I don't have a solid answer on that other than be open-minded, try new things. If something scares you, you should probably go try it a bit.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I see from the match side of things is they talk about cops can't shoot, etc. And Brian Easters did, and I did a big episode on that. And it's okay. Well, when you get your stage brief and everything, we don't get that. All right. Ours is the first time we know we're in the shootout is when the shootout started.
Yeah.
And I will say university skill does need to improve if I want to paint with the big giant broad brush, but you know, cops are in chaotic situations day in and day out, but very few of them are actual shooting situations.
Yes.
And that's not something that you can get other than constantly being thrown into those chaotic situations. And I got to tell you, if I could go through like everybody I know in the training community, all right, if I can handpick my people from those group to be with me in the event that I have to fight for my life in a parking lot, that's the group that I want. But if it's I have to take the random sample of gun owners or the random sample of cops, give me the random sample of cops.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's where that whole notion is crazy. Like, because I think it's an ego thing on a lot of like kind of like the Timmy civilian shooters, like, well, cops can't shoot. It's like, was there some force field preventing them from practicing? Like, I'm not aware that exists, right? But I think it is, you look at like the broad swath of law enforcement, they have the training they received in service, and most of them don't go beyond that. And that's really the real problem, right? Is that service is adequate, hopefully adequate to do police work. I'm sure it varies from place to place. But like excellence, if you look at the people who are pursuing excellence, you know, like a lot of normies are out there pursuing excellence, right? But if you look at the average dude at your gun range versus the average cop in your local town, I will pick the average cop over the average guy at your gun. And remember, that guy at the gun range is in the top third of gun owners in your city, right? And I'll take that average cop over that average guy every day of the week. Yeah. So I think that's a big misnomer that people get out of whack, right?
Yeah. And it's the people that show up at gun classes are not the typical gun owner.
No.
but they tend to look at themselves like, I own a gun, I come do this, I am typical. And
Yeah.
not, you're 1% of the whole thing.
You're
And
the tiniest part, but so that's the thing, that's where I think like martial arts and like matches, like I get that there are serious like problems with matches, but the problem is if you set up a match to be realistic, no one would come. And that's what you see over and over again. Like no offense, I'm speaking about my betters, so I'm trying, don't think that means I think I'm superior or anything. I don't. But like you hear a lot of guys talking about, well, for 6 months here, there was this really cool match and it was great. But it's always some old thing from back in the day. It always dies on the vine. And it's like if you ever see someone sit down and like grill Noam Chomsky, like, well, what kind of government do you want, Noam? He's like, well, American government's obviously the best. Okay, what about Europe? They're kind of socialist over there. He's like, oh yeah, but still, there's so many disparities. Like, all right, what about China? And it's like, oh, well, they're not doing enough for the lower class. Okay, no. What government well, who did it right? And they'll be like, there was 6 weeks in Lower Catalonia during the Spanish Revolution where things were just great. And I feel like a lot of the Timmies get kind of like that. Like there was this one little moment in time where things were good, but it's always transitory. Like if you look at, I never went, but in my estimation, the best, like, how do you put it all together? How do you evaluate who knows this stuff best, other than experience, in a controlled environment? Is the National Tactical Invitation, right? NTI. I never got to go. The year I was going to go is the year they canceled. So I was like, oh, okay. But that is a huge production. I mean, and those guys, from what I read, they just got exhausted of it and said, man, this hurts. This isn't fun anymore. I don't want to do it. It's my understanding.
yeah.
And so it's hard to put on stuff that's realistic, that's repeatable. So I think we have to settle for stuff that has a degree of artificiality, such as jujitsu or USPSA. And then we need to recognize the deficiencies of those repeatable things we can do over and over, and then train around those details. I think that's the best we can do, because, man, I'm here to tell you, I've shot a lot of 2-day pistol classes. They are real expensive compared to a jiu-jitsu membership or a USPSA membership, right? And so I think that's it. I think it's having a holistic approach, taking the problem seriously, listening to the smart, experienced people, taking their advice, and trying to find a way to amalgamate all that into a personal practice that is responsible to you and your family and the people around you. You're avoiding negative outcomes, and you're investing in your skills as much as your interest, time, and finances allow.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good way of looking at it.
Yeah. And I'll throw what I said just a second ago. I'll toss it on the other end of it. If I know that the problem is going to be nothing but a pure shooting problem, it's like, all right, boys, in just a second, we're going to have a buzzer and then we're going to have a gunfight. I'll take the random sample of IDPA expert shooters over the random sample of cops.
For sure. But in a real situation, who'd you take? I'd take the cop.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? For sure.
Right. Yeah. And there's a certain level that, the technical mastery is going to translate over to certain things on the other side of the application, that if you can't all of a sudden acquire skill, but there's so much more to the application than just technical mastery.
Absolutely. Like, we'll look at, like, let's say Taccon 16 example. I smashed Taccon 16, right? From a hit factor perspective.
Yeah.
Of the 20 guys in the top 20, would I be your number one pick to go into a scary situation? If the answer is me, you're picking poorly, because you've got like Paul Sharp and Greg Elfritz and guys like that in there. And guess what? I'm not picking me, I'm picking them, because they have relevant real world experience mated with like more than sufficient technical skill. And so, but at the same time, if you're never going to get real world experience, or if you do, it'll be a one-time ride probably. Man, getting as much technical mastery as you can, that's what you can invest in, right?
Sure. All right, Kirk, anything that you would like to address that I didn't ask you about tonight?
Man, I think we talked about dang near everything tonight.
Sure. Sure. And if you don't want to, totally understandable. We didn't prep this, but if you would like a minute to pay tribute to your father, I'd love to ask you that.
Absolutely, man. I have my dad to thank for everything. He's the one that, supported. He's the first guy who ever took me shooting, took me hunting, did nothing for me. One day he brought out a SIG 226 and a Colt Combat Commander, which were the only handguns we had at the time. And I shot those, and just some switch in my brain turned on and said, oh, nope, this is your thing now. And instead of, like saying, what's wrong with you, kid? Introduced me to all the right people, and, turned it into a good thing in my life, and supported this weird little hobby of mine fully. And beyond all that, he was an amazing man, and I was blessed to know him every single day I had with him. So, I hope everyone has someone like that in their life.
Absolutely. And God bless you for your time with him.
Yes, sir.
Where can people find, I know you're starting to publish some works and you've got some really interesting articles coming up.
Yeah, so I'm doing some training with Citizens Defense Research over with John Johnson and Melody Lauer and the gang. I'll be assistant teaching a class in Edinburgh, Texas here in October. Go ahead and check the Citizens Defense Research website for that. In addition, cryptidendeavors.com is going to be my blog. I've got some articles mostly done. I'm just waiting to get them published and formatted and pushed out. First one's going to be an interview with Bill Wilson that I think you'll enjoy. Excuse me, not Bill Wilson, but Bill Rogers that I think you'll enjoy. And we've got some other fun stuff coming up after that. And that's basically me. That's where you can find me. What
was the web address for your blog again?
Cryptid, CRYPTID Endeavors, ENDEAVORS.com. I'm on Instagram, it's Cryptid Endeavors too. Okay. Basically, someone once told me, you're like the least known guy in this that can do the things you can do. You're like some kind of Bigfoot out there in the woods doing stuff. And I was like, I really like that idea of, there's just some Bigfoot showing up to events and everyone's like, who the hell is that guy? Like, so that's why I ran with.
Yeah, I would love to be able to put links to everything in the show descriptions and stuff, but I've been running into a problem with that with the feeds. And so I've gotten very leery of doing that. Maybe in this instance, send me the links and I'll see if I can work them in there. If we have a problem, I'll just re-upload everything.
Cool.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
Be good to each other. Remember, this is serious stuff. This is not stuff to be made light of. This is life and death things. At the same time, if we do it right, responsibly, the goal is this is all just some weird hobby we had when we were younger, and we can all talk about it like, man, look how much time and effort I wasted on that stuff. Well, I had a good time. We want to all say that when we're 80 if we can, right?
Yeah. Cool. And this time next week, we'll get to see each other, man.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm pretty burnt. I'm open-minded. Whether or not I shoot the match is just going to be on how I feel that day. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. We're going to find out.
Yeah, I did not shoot it last year because I was teaching 3 revolver classes. And so I had to pack all of my revolver gear, etc. And I flew and I got everything packed and like turned around to get my normal gear that I would shoot with. And I'm like, I don't have room.
That's too much.
I don't have room. And so I didn't shoot the match this last year. This year I've got local contractors driving out and is going to carry some of my gear with them. And so I may have room to pack stuff and may shoot the match this year. So we'll see.
For me, I'm at a point in this where it's as much performance art as anything else. I'm just debating between, I'm not intellectually or physically at my best right now. And do I want to go and try to put on a performance that I'm not in a good space for? Or do I just want to say, YOLO, let's see what happens. We'll see what happens when we get there.
There you go. All right, man. Well, Kirk, I always enjoy talking with you. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Well, of course, by the time everybody hears this, it'll be this week. But looking forward to seeing you and all of our crew that we get to see once a year at Taccon. And to the audience, once again, thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. And remember, only share the links with your smart friends.